Hi, this tutorial is to show you how you can use your own voice to create some monstrous vocalizations, do a little post-production on it, and then have it sound very inhuman. It'll be great to use as a ringtone. Maybe you have it as a part of your Halloween house decorations to scare the kiddies, or maybe for a party. Maybe you want to use it for a Dungeons & Dragons game, or a podcast, or any number of other things. It's really easy to do. In order to do this, you will need to have a microphone. You will need to have a digital audio workstation. The one that I am using is Audacity. It is completely free to download. You will also need as quiet an environment as possible in order for this to really work well, because as you start applying effects, it'll actually amplify the background noises. Now, when I record this today, I'm going to be using my recording booth, but you don't need to do that. You can just have a quiet space. I would suggest just throwing a comforter or a blanket over your head while you record if you have nothing else. That'll really dampen the sound. I'm also going to be using my MXL 770 microphone. If you don't have a condenser microphone like that, it is perfectly fine. You can use the recorder in your cell phone. It'll work just as well. You might need to play a little bit with how close you get to it, but it'll work just as fine. You don't have to make a big investment for this. One other thing that I am going to recommend for this tutorial, do a vocal warm-up. Get warmed up before doing this. Even if you've been talking all day long, I don't care, do some vocal warm-ups. If you don't, you're asking to do some damage there. You're asking just to completely wreck them for the next couple hours, maybe even a day or two. All right, let's head on over and do our recording.
Okay, so right now we are recording directly into Audacity, and now I'm going to do the sound that we need to do. And now we're going to go play with it.
So we have our track now. We have my audio of me making the noise. All right. Now what you can see here too is that there's a lot of clipping. I had probably had the gain too high on the microphone. I'd want to turn that down a little bit. There's ways that you can do to affect that so it doesn't get this solid line, which means that I exceeded the ability of the microphone and everything to process this. But this is going to be okay. Now, the first thing I need to do is really generate some silence here, so that way I'm dealing with clean margins on both sides. If I highlight this area, and in Audacity, if I highlight something and hit spacebar, it'll only play the highlighted area. So I highlighted the first, second, and 1.7 seconds here. All right, and you can hear that I have a breath there, and if I come to the end here, okay, I don't want to get all of that because I want the end, and I have a little pop there. So I want to silence these. Now, I've set up a hotkey for myself because I do, with my audiobook narration and editing, I have to silence a lot of things in the track, so I set up a hotkey for myself. The way you would do this is highlight this, highlight whatever you want to silence, go to Edit, Remove Special, Silence Audio. Boom. Now the hotkey I set up was F5, so now when I play this, it is blissfully silent. Okay, now we're going to start applying effects. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to highlight the entire track. I'm actually going to shift the pitch on this first, so that way it drops it down to lower than what I would be capable of doing on my own. So we go to Effect, we're going to go to Change Pitch. And usually this would set at right around 0. And if I preview it, all right, that's my voice. I'm going to drop this down. This is where you could start getting creative. I'm going to drop this down about 47%, I think. That's where I had it before. But you're going to want to sit there and hit preview a few times. See what's going to sound right for you for the sound that you're going for. So if I preview this now, all right, that sounds pretty cool. So we're going to apply that to the entire track. So now when I play the track, all right, it's starting to sound beastly, but we need to do more because it still kind of sounds, if you have an ear for it, you can hear that that's a human making that voice. And we want this to sound bestial and inhuman. So now what I'm going to do, go to my effects menu. I'm now going to change the speed. Now again, speed would usually be at about 0. That's where we'd start. If I wanted it to play faster, that would almost sound comical, I think, if I put it up to 20. Let's see. That sounds exactly the same, doesn't it? All right, that sounds like a little kid making the voice. We don't want that. So keep that in mind as you play around with this. You could figure out ways. Maybe I want a little kid to sound like they're making this voice, but I don't. I want this to sound bestial. So I'm going to drop this down to negative 27%. Now you can see it's extended. All right, now it's a longer clip, but now when we play it, there we go. Now we've slowed it down. Now it's sounding inhuman. We could leave it at this. But what I'm going to do, I like to add a little something extra. I want to add a little reverb to this because I want this to sound like it's actually like in a space. You could use it like this. Nothing wrong. We could stop right here. Everything's fine. But I'm going to apply a little reverb on this. And there's a lot you can play with in here. I myself will tell you I don't understand all of the controls. I couldn't explain what each one will do in here. But I am going to take wet only off because that's going to really diminish it. But all of these are going to tell you. So the room size is how big of an echo. The reverberance percentage is how long it takes to trail off. So if we preview this now. All right, there we go. I can make this sound a lot longer. There's a lot of things you can play with this if you want to play wet only. Spend some time playing with it. There's nothing wrong with it. Now, I will tell you this, that Audacity does what's called destructive editing. It is possible for you to get to a certain point where you've done so many steps that you can no longer reverse it. You are able to undo up to a point. So my suggestion would be on your original track, save that as its own raw file. And then every time you start messing with it, start saving it under a different file name. So that way, if you truly, royally screw this up to the point where you can't undo it, just go right back to the original audio. So we're going to apply this. Oh, there we go. Now, let's hear what this sounds like. Yeah, now it sounds like it's in a room. So that is how you create a bestial sound effect. Hey, you know what would be awesome is if you were to share with me the crazy voices that you're coming up with. You can hit me up on Twitter at @TheSaintBrian, same thing on Instagram, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can get updates for when I post other stuff like this. Thank you, and show me how awesome you're being.